Welcome, ladies, to a very special IKS event, how to make menopause sweet. Sugar-free, of course, no sugar here. So who is excited about this evening's event? Yeah, can I get some thumbs going here? Thumbs up and claps. Yes, I know I am. Woo! Okay, ladies, be sure before we get going here that you stay till the end this evening because we're going to be giving away a hormone balancing kit that retails for $119. And it is some amazing products. I love these products, but you've got to be present to win. So even though you're here now, if we call your name at the end and you're not here, we're moving on to the next person. Plus, if time permits, we are going to then unmute everybody and open up the floor to some Q&A, to some live sessions where you have a chance to meet Kate. Also, just throughout the event, if you have a burning question, write that question in the chat box. Dawn's going to be monitoring that, and she will go ahead and at the end, when we open it up, I'll ask her first, were there any questions? So that way, if you had a question and you don't forget it, we'll be able to go back to it and address that for you. All right. I am thrilled to introduce you to this evening's special guest. All right. She's a well-known speaker and an author of A Forecast for Health. And she's an entrepreneur and biochem nerd. All right. This woman loves science. All right. With 20 plus years here, experience in the bioidentical hormone products, as well as hormone and genetic testing. So she's just a wealth of knowledge. So we are so lucky to have her join us here tonight. So without further ado, to discuss all things menopause, it is an honor to introduce you to our guest this evening, Kate Wells. So welcome, Kate. It is so great to have you here this evening. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Joyce. I thought it's a very sweet introduction. Like that pun. I'm just very happy to be here and have the chance to talk about my favorite thing,
hormones. Me too. Dawn, can you make sure everybody's muted out there? Thank you so much. Oh, I know. I'm so excited to have you and talk about hormones because it's such an integral part of our health. I want to say first, before we dive deep into that, into our conversation, I'm really excited to have you join us tonight for two reasons. All right. So the first one, as you know, we have a mutual friend in common. I mean, this is why you and I are sitting here this evening amongst my ladies. She's actually your best friend and your business partner, Kirsty, who's also a very good friend of mine and my husband, Luke. Gosh, I was thinking about this other day. We've known Kirsty now and Kurt for close to 20 years, 19 or 20 years. So a long time too. She's my friend too, you know. Boy, does time fly. And Kirsty, you know, I want all my ladies to know this. And if you don't know, she has been a big support system for me as an entrepreneur. And she's also helped me tremendously in getting I Kick Sugar off of the ground. So all my ladies really have Kirsty to thank for that, a lot of that technical stuff. And that's really how this evening came to be tonight. You know, that Kirsty and I, we have our Zoom monthly girl chat calls every month. We get together and we just chat as girlfriends and catch up on stuff. And though somehow your name, we still end up talking business. How's your business? How's your business? And she always brings up you and says, oh, Kate, you know, she's now working on this article. She's writing this blog. She's doing whatever you're working on next. She's bringing you up, you know, and the excitement. I've got her working on this video. I just love, first of all, the products. I mean, I remember when Parlor Games was just starting out and she sent me the first little sample, you know, to test it out. Well, you know, if I send it to you, you try it. I'm like, of course, you know, send it to me. And now to look at the two of you, you know, women who have so many more solutions than just that first product, Silky Peach, for women is really inspiring. So, you know, through our girl talks and our chats together every month, I would always say, you know, that boy, you know, her ladies, she would say her ladies, need the I Kick Sugar program. And I would say, my ladies, they really need to hear the solutions that you have to offer. Maybe we need to get our ladies together, and I need to bring Kate on so that they can meet you and learn all about you. So it's been a long time in the planning. And I'm so happy that her and I were finally able to get a date set on the calendar and make this work so that we are here, because the work that we both do, as you and I were discussing and know, it's so interconnected, it's crazy. It really is. And the second reason, why I'm so happy you're in front of me and the ladies tonight is because for the last 3 years, while I've been running I Kick Sugar, it is so evident to me that the majority of the IKS tribe is made up of women in the mid-season of their life. I don't have a bunch of 20-year-olds in here. I've got 50, 60, 70, 80-year-olds. It's amazing what these women are doing later on in life, owning their power. And I see this in the groups that I have, that, the questions and the comments that come through in their posts about their struggle, but it's not only with sugar, but they actually talk about perimenopause and menopause in the group. And sometimes I'm like, I don't know, can I talk about this? I'm not the expert here. That's another reason why I'm like, I need to get you here, and what I learned myself going through menopause, being sugar-free, as for my ladies out there that don't know, I'm 53. Next month I'll be 53 in May. And I've been post-menopausal now, haven't had my period for the last 3.5 years. And all I can say is I'm so thankful that I went through it sugar-free, because it is so clear, that if I'm not mistaken, and you can clarify and correct me later about the science, because we're going to get into this to back me up on this in a minute and share that with the ladies, that nutrition and our lifestyle habits, they affect our bodies and our brains, which affect those menopause symptoms. So eating sugar, it is like pouring fuel on the fire to your cravings, to your hot flashes, that are being brought on already by menopause. And conversely, menopause, can make things like weight gain and cravings, those body aches, much more challenging to navigate in and of themselves, which is why I knew that I needed to get my hormones personally balanced, just to support that transition through my life and have that optimal health. That diet alone, it just wasn't going to do it. And that's really what I want, my ladies to get out of our talk today, that in order to make this transition smooth, it's crucial that we support our bodies, not only with nutrition and healthy lifestyle habits, but perhaps like myself, with some kind of hormone support. Because I would really be lying to all of my ladies if I said, hey, you can look and feel just like me, and all you have to do is kick sugar, eat better, move more, and menopause is going to be great. That's all you got to do. Because that wasn't the truth for me, and for many like myself, I needed that additional support to balance my hormones. And so for that, that is why I'm happy to finally have you visit us, because it's the two go hand in hand. So before we go any further, I want my ladies just to learn a little bit more about you and your background before we get into the science. I already know that you are 60 years old. Wow. Doesn't she look amazing, ladies? Right? Amazing. Look at that skin, that smile, everything. And that age is great. It's a number. You and I were talking earlier. You feel like you're in your 40s, and it's true. And that is what's possible when you eat right, you support your hormones, and you make those proper lifestyle changes. It's just incredible. And I also think I heard that you hike routinely 20 miles. You can easily do that in a day, which is insane. So please share with us, ladies, some backstory, just a little bit, how you're running this company now, and how you're helping women with their hormones. How did you get here? Who is Kate Wells?
All right. Well, thank you. Thank you. Thank you for all your lovely words there. Um, I grew up in the UK, as you guys will realize pretty quickly as soon as I start talking. Um, I've been in the US for 30 years, but my first career was in teaching, and at the root of me, I am a teacher. However, it didn't take me long in teaching to work out that I was never going to make any money at that. Um, and I found my way into business. I have an MBA, and I just love the business process. And the first like real big job that I got was working as the COO of a saliva hormone testing laboratory.
Mm.
And this immersed me in this fantastic new world of biochemistry and hormones and neurotransmitters. And I've had several roles in different laboratories driving a lot of our outreach and our education. One of the things that my brain loves to do is acquire information, build information, and then distill it in a way that makes sense, whether that's to practitioners or whether that's to everyday women who are trying to get to the root cause of their health issues. I've tried to retire twice. It's not happening, just not happening. And no one who knows me really well, especially my partner who lives with me, he doesn't want me to retire either. Um, so some time ago, Kirsty and I had been, I had helped her with this issue of vaginal dryness. Um, she's a few years younger than me, but she was experiencing that. And I'd helped her. I'd explained that there is a solution for this horribly surprising post-menopausal issue. And we were kicking around as friends do. And eventually we decided that we have to bring this. We have to bring this to women. We know that they are not getting answers from their practitioners. It
Mhm.
could be the practitioner doesn't know. I mean, there's so many reasons they're not getting the answers. But we decided that we had to bring this to women. And that's what we have been working on for the last 3 years, bringing Silky Peach Cream and then some other hormones to the market because there's a gap. And we wanted to help people in that gap.
Yeah. Mm. And it's so, like you said, it is so needed, so needed. Um, it is strange how doctors, they don't talk about it, and they really don't know a lot about it. I was just recently at another doctor's appointment, and her solution again was, doing, and we'll get into this, I'm sure too, but wanting to prescribe me like Premarin, we can talk about
Mhm.
what that is like. I'm like, oh my
Yeah.
goodness. I knew how bad that was way back in like the 20s when I was into animal rights, as many of my ladies knew.
Mhm.
I mean, for that
Mhm.
reason, not for health, but what it did to the animals. And, or if I was feeling a little down, which just had to do with my hormones, oh, well, you know what? I could prescribe you an anti-anxiety or antidepressant. It's like
Ugh,
clueless, clueless.
ugh.
Yeah. So it's important, like I tell my ladies all the time, we have to empower ourselves. We have to gain this knowledge on our own, which is exactly what we're here doing tonight. So maybe we can start at the beginning. This is a great place. Just kind of give us a brief, 101 on what is happening to our bodies during menopause that no one ever talks about. Her grandma didn't talk about it, her mom didn't talk about it. It's like it's been taboo. I mean, it's starting to be surfacing now and becoming more acceptable of a conversation. But boy, you didn't discuss this even with your girlfriends. No one knew anything. So
Mm.
share with us what's happening to our bodies, all the way down to like, I know you're going to nerd out on us. I'll stop you if it gets a little too crazy, but it's, talk about the impact of neurotransmitters, the metabolism, blood sugar,
Mhm.
the key there, all of that is so important. The hormonal changes that are taking place, and then the symptoms, because I really want my ladies to hear this big, long list of symptoms also, which surprised me, that sometimes you just forget and you think there's something wrong with you. And you're like, oh, that's related to menopause. That's related to perimenopause, to
Right.
give us that so we can identify the problem. Because I'm always saying
Mhm.
you've got to be able to see and identify the problem to make the change. So have at it. Get as nerdy as you
Alrighty. I will
want.
get going. So when we think about hormones, we primarily tend to think about them in terms of the reproductive cycle. When we're in our cycling years, we have a surge of estrogen in the first half of the cycle. That's responsible for growing that uterine lining. And then after we ovulate, there is a surge of progesterone. And that progesterone is important for making sure that that uterine lining stays viable and strong, just in case there's an implanted egg. Now, for the vast majority of those cycles, of course, there isn't any implantation of an egg, no fertilized egg. And so towards the end of that 27, 28-day cycle, there is a sudden drop in progesterone that sheds our uterine lining. We get a period. Now, as we go through perimenopause, which these days can start in the early 40s, what is happening is that we still get that surge of estrogen, but we start to have what's called anovulatory cycles. So we don't produce an egg. And if you don't produce the egg, there's no surge of progesterone. So you still got that estrogen, but you didn't have it balanced by progesterone. And that's when it starts going to hell in a handbasket, because you have way too much estrogen in relation to progesterone. So that means all those PMSE symptoms, headaches, mood swings, weight gain, bloating, ferocious moods sometimes. It could be that food cravings. So there's a whole bunch of things that go on there because you've got that imbalance. It's a crazy making time for many women. And if they were just able to supplement with some bioidentical in that second half of the cycle, that would remove a lot of the symptoms. And that is the first thing I want everybody to understand who is still perimenopausal or knows somebody who is. You can backfill that progesterone in the second half of the cycle and remove a lot of the symptoms.
Mm.
So when we go through the menopausal transition and after menopause, we've already had a drop in progesterone. Now we have a drop in estrogen. So they've caught up. And you might think, well, fine, they're all back in balance. But that's not okay. If your numbers are like 0, that's when a whole new set of symptoms start. Estrogen is super important for skin integrity. Now, whether you come at that from, not wanting to have wrinkles or whatever, think about how important our skin is. It is our barrier with the world, wherever that may be, on our skin, on our arms, on our face, and even our vagina, and even our urethra. All those skin tissues need to be healthy. And so when we don't have estrogen available, our skin begins to get wrinkly. In those tender places down below, they can even rub and tear. And once you get a break in that skin, that's when you begin to get like infections or, painful sex. Let's talk about a subject that doesn't get discussed. But there's a whole host of other things. Both hormones are important for our brains. They're important for recalling memory, for making new memories. They are important for making our neurotransmitters work well. They're super important for that. And if we don't have them, then we don't make as many of the neurotransmitters that we need to balance our moods, to sleep, for example.
Right.
They influence our blood sugar management. If we don't have those hormones, then our insulin management can go haywire, even when we're doing a really good job of not spiking our blood sugar.
And that's what was happening to me then, right? So I'm
Right.
still dealing with that. And it's like, but I'm not eating sugar. So what's going on here? Where are these cravings coming from? It's coming from the
Right.
imbalanced hormones, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
particularly progesterone. Now, we tend to think of them being related just to the reproductive cycle, but there are so many functions. They have over 400 functions in the body. So just because we're done with reproduction does not mean we are done with hormones. Everybody has bones, right? Yes. We want those to be strong and healthy for as long as we're running around the mountains, or at least I do. And both estrogen and progesterone and another hormone called DHEA, dihydroepiandrosterone, is also important for making sure our bones are healthy. They're important for muscles as well. So we can go on and on and on and on about all the ways that hormones are important, and the lack of them bring in things like, it's easier to break a bone. It's easier to, to find yourself, tired and fatigued. Many people would love to get out and take some of those lifestyle changes, but getting off the sofa is hard work.
Yeah.
So making sure that we have those hormones available. So sometimes you can think of hormones as the crane that can get you off the sofa to
Yeah.
go and do some of those other fun things.
The other one, I don't know if you mentioned it, but was a big one for me, my symptoms, was insomnia, not being able to
Yes.
sleep at night. And of course the hot flashes,
Hmm.
but you never can really describe, you can't describe it. You just have to go through it, I mean,
Right.
I could be freezing in 1 minute and then, got all these layers on, and then I'm just taking clothes off, left and right, one by one,
Yeah.
wearing my Ugg boots 1 minute and taking them off the next.
Right. And hot flashes in particular related to a drop in estrogen. And we do find, our Parlor Games ladies, they'll start on Silky Peach Cream for on vaginal and urinary health issues. They find that their hot flashes will diminish. And it's because they're just using a little bit of estrogen. And so the biochemistry on this one, ladies, is the area that controls your temperature sits right next to the area that controls your hormones. And
Hmm.
so when you have fluctuations in your hormones or you're missing hormones, there can be these feedback, like make hormone, make hormone, make hormone messages going on. And because that's right next to your temperature regulator, the temperature regulator goes, oh, there's all this messaging going on. Oh, I'm going to get terribly excited here. And then you get that variation and heating and cooling. And it's because of that juxtaposition in your brain.
Hmm. Yeah, it's so
So,
real.
right. So when it comes to sleep, now this is just a sweet little tip that I hope your ladies take away, is that progesterone, this hormone acts on the brain, particularly to make one of those inhibitory neurotransmitters called GABA. And GABA is our calm, chill neurotransmitter. And without progesterone, we don't get as much signaling to make GABA. And so it can be harder to settle and go to sleep at night. Or if we wake in the night, perhaps you need to
Mm.
go pee, you go back to bed again, and your mind begins to start churning. It's because it doesn't have enough GABA to help you go back down to sleep again. So using progesterone, in particular, using a little bit of progesterone at bedtime can really help stimulate GABA to go to sleep and stay asleep.
I have noticed that tremendously with progesterone. I mean, of all the hormones, I think I personally, to me, the most powerful one, at least that works for me, because everyone's different, is progesterone. Like,
Mhm.
wow, what it does for me. I've noticed too, though, like I'm so in tune that if I end up taking too much, right, then I can, then all of a sudden it catches up with me and I'm like, why am I so tired through the day? I
Mhm.
was taking too much, it's like either I've shared
Uh-huh.
with my ladies, but I'll just share again, my journey and why what you and Kirsty do, I think is really the answer, is because I've been on this never-ending search. And I've tried everything from shots, testosterone shots, to pellets, to the creams, to the troches, you name it, I've tried it all. And so I can tell you like what I think works and what you have the most control with. And the most control really is the creams, and by far taking a toll with the different doctors that I've talked to. Most of them really do like the creams the best also for that reason. Unlike when I was using pellets, like we were talking earlier, they're stuck in me, and I'm left with what, having to run the course of that cycle. And that if it wasn't the right amount or something else is off, it's just, hell to go through that. It's like and what I love that you've said in the past, or some reading that I did want to share with you, is that less is more. And I don't think I prescribe that because, I am the all or nothing lady. My ladies know that, even though I preach, we shouldn't be doing the all or nothing mindset that never works. And here it is again, where I was doing that with hormones, like, well, give me more, give me more, give me more. And more isn't always better. and starting out, you know, slow and small, really like just is really sometimes all we need is just a little drop, a little bit of cream, and we can feel so much better. You were speaking of the GABA, and I think I've got the chaos calmer here that
Yep.
sometimes I
Yep.
use for
That's one
sleep
of our
also.
creams.
Yeah,
Hmm.
and it has GABA in it, if I'm not mistaken, right? Or does it
That's
trigger it
right.
or something? Yeah.
Now this one's a slightly different product. This one, yes, some of our ladies do use it at nighttime to help them fall asleep because it has magnesium in it. And let me tell you, a high proportion of people in this country are low in magnesium, and it's critical for every single cell function. So if we're low, every single cell function is threatened. And
Mhm.
it also has L-theanine, which is an amino acid, which helps stop the chitter chatter, overthinking.
I think that's why I love it so much.
And we can get very prone to that if we're busy and if we've got things going on. I tend to be a pretty calm person, but if I have had a day where, oh my goodness, I had so many things coming at me and I'm beginning to get a tension headache, it's like my brain just feels like it's going to explode. A
Yeah.
little bit of the chaos calmer just on the thin area of my skin within 10 minutes. Oh, I'm back down again. But it can also be used for people who are really prone to anxiety. I mean, even kitties. You know, we have one of our employees, she has a 4-year-old,
Right.
and uh, her daughter's a bit on the excitable side, and she puts a little bit of her sleepy cream on at bedtime, and it just helps her settle to sleep and then stay asleep through the night. So it has applicability to a very wide range.
Mm.
People who are a little bit more prone to getting upset and get to that top of their chest where they're breathing a little nervously. This can really help calm.
Yeah,
So,
I've definitely noticed that. I need very little bit. I mean, I think again, because I'm so sensitive, but you know, and I've played around with it to see the difference, you know, like how long does this little drop take me to fall asleep, you know, and then I'm like, ow,
mhm,
or that one, or just the right
yeah.
enough where I can still function the day, but like you said, just
Mhm,
take the edge off,
yeah.
which is nice to calm that overactive brain of mine.
Right. But do let me go back to what you said about balance because it's critically important and how much is enough. I mean, we're all very different. You know, every person. What we say to our ladies at Polygames is everyone who comes to us has had a different path to us. They've brought different biochemistry. They've brought different life experiences. They've brought different lifestyle experiences.
Right.
But our constant message is just enough. You know, too much hormone can be damaging in the way that too little hormone can be damaging. So you want just enough to resolve the symptoms that are causing a disturbance. And your point about creams is really well taken. It's a very smart thing to say, is because you can adjust. And we do encourage our ladies to experiment, just like you were saying with the chaos calmer. We're all different, and so trying things out, just change one thing at a time though, so you
Yeah.
know what is affecting you. um
The
because
variable, since you're a
Mhm,
scientist.
right. That's right, let
One
me change one
variable at a
variable at
time.
once. That's right.
Yeah, it's so true. Talk to me a little bit. We didn't touch on how also I think it balances out what I learned going through menopause, and what I also test is the my FSH, my follicular stimulating hormone. And
Mhm.
tell me if I'm right that when my estrogen drops, that's when the follicular stimulating hormone rises. And is that actually what's causing the hot flashes, the insomnia? Is that, I mean, yes, the estrogen created that to rise, but is it coming from there, or the two go hand in hand? Is there anything you could give me on that? Or
You
explain
know,
what even maybe the follicular stimulating hormone is to some ladies, if you can.
right. So during that first half of the cycle, that's when we get that surge of estrogen. And around just before mid-cycle, there is this hormone that is released that is called follicular stimulating hormone. And that is working in the ovary to get that ovum, that egg, ready to be released from the ovary. And there's a number of things that can interfere with that. So, for example, what we see in young women these days is that oftentimes their insulin levels are high. They have a high carb diet, high sugar diet. I mean, just think about one of those fancy drinks that they get from a
Starbucks.
Northwest chain, yes,
Yeah.
called Starbucks, which has 800 or 900 calories in there before you even add the whipped cream. So they're boosting their bodies the sugar. And as their insulin levels are rising, there is a mechanism which will actually increase testosterone levels.
Mm,
And as this biochemical imbalance is going on,
yeah.
that will prevent ovulation.
Wow.
And so you see this pattern of anovulatory cycles, so cycles with no egg, and elevated testosterone. And how
Okay.
that presents is in symptoms like acne or facial hair. And
Mm,
those are all symptoms related to that elevated testosterone. As your testosterone is going up, some of that converts to another hormone called DHT. And when you get DHT going on, that's when you start to get oily skin and acne, and you begin to get facial hair. I mean, there are young women these days who have a lot of facial hair. It's
wow.
because of that dysregulated system. So, this is one of the other aspects of hormones as to why it's to take it steady. You would never want to take a bath in progesterone, much as you feel its benefits when you just start. It's because you don't want to throw all of
Maybe
this
that was
off.
my problem.
So when it comes to hot flashes, I mean, there's no exact science on this. There are still, a lot of theories to understand why that goes on. The vasomotor system, that's the temperature control system in your brain, it has a number of things that play into there. One of the other aspects that's really interesting, I find absolutely interesting, is the role that melatonin plays in this. Melatonin is responsible. One of the things it does is for suppressing appetite overnight, so we can sleep, mini fast overnight and not feel hungry. One of the other things that melatonin does is it's part of the signaling that drops our body temperature down overnight. And so making sure that we have fabulous sleep hygiene, making sure the room is dark, completely dark, that we're winding down before bedtime, that we're not on our phones getting that blue light, getting little punches of dopamine from Instagram or something. All those are bad things for helping us get to sleep. So making sure we have good sleep hygiene, so that we can settle to sleep is also important for releasing melatonin for its temperature control. And so here's another little add-on fact. We need our body temperature to drop overnight because that lower temperature means that the nasty gut bugs that we have, nasty bacteria,
Yeah.
those die off during the night when our body goes cold.
Wow.
So
I did not know
I
that.
I know, don't you just love how
That's
all of this
cool.
fits together? This is why I
And
love
we
this
can't,
stuff.
and let me just clarify. I can't do that just from freezing myself out in the room, right? It's my body temperature.
No, it has to be an internal body control mechanism. You do want the room cool, yes, because that's good, and layers of blankets ready to layer on as you drop down,
Yeah.
temperature wise. But yes, that has to be one of those internal control mechanisms for melatonin.
I mean, talking about sleeping, and we're just all ladies here, so I'm just gonna say it. I've found as I've gotten older, I mean, I have to sleep without any clothes on. Like, there's just no way around it. Like, I will just sweat so profusely through my pajamas, even if they're light. And if I don't have anything on, just like everything feels cooler, the sheets feel cooler. It really helps keep my body temperature down. Have you heard anything about that? Like, is there anything to like not
Yes, we
wearing?
do hear that, and it's usually an indicator that there's an imbalance. You will
Mm,
likely get that flush or change of heat
yeah,
when there is an imbalance between hormones that is setting off that heat sensor
you
control
don't need to
to
work on
panic
balancing
that.
it. Yeah.
Yeah,
No, I know I
yeah.
do. I do. I And I guess, let me ask you this, because it's one thing I've learned through the years, through my wise old age of 53, that, I had to let go of this illusion that I was always I could reach this state of steady, perfect balance in my health, right? Like, so
It's
even with the hormones, even though I'm doing all I can, it's like,
mhm,
it doesn't mean I'm failing. It's just because,
no,
there's so many variables. Then you've got a stress event in your life, or you've got something else
right.
coming in,
Mhm,
whatever it might be, or you only worked out 4 days this week instead of 5 days this week, or it was a little different, that everything
mhm,
just has an effect,
right,
on
right.
your system. Therefore, like, you
Mhm,
can't keep that steady state of homeostasis. Like, it changes continually.
right,
And I've had to
right.
let that go so that I don't have this expectation of perfectionism, that it doesn't mean
Mhm,
I'm failing balancing my hormones just because, it's like I haven't reached that perfect, like, okay, I know exactly, put that one drop on and this and everything's like great, and I'll never have a hot flash again. Um,
right.
would
And
you agree
women,
with that?
yeah, I would say, well, for a start, women are very prone to giving themselves a hard time. We're often our worst critics, and we've just got to stop that nonsense.
Totally.
The But it is. I mean, I was away at a conference over the weekend, and 15 years ago, 10 years ago, I could have done a weekend conference, come back to work on Monday, just gone off to work, blah, blah, blah. Monday morning, no, I don't think I could string two sentences together without sounding as if I'd just been hung upside down in a well. And I, I, it's just harder for my body to get get back into to balance, into stasis after having had that extra activity go
Right.
on.
Yeah.
Um, so the other thing that can disrupt our sleep, of course, is the effect that menopause has on our bladder. Would it be okay if I talk about peeing?
Please, because I noticed that. I
Right.
wake up. Is that where you're going?
I would love to talk about this because I mean I know we as a culture we don't talk about vaginal dryness, but we don't talk about urinary incontinence either. And so, just as there are receptors for estrogen that line the vagina and around the cervix and in the vulva for that matter, there are also receptors for estrogen that line the little tube that goes to the bladder, the urethra, and around the opening of the bladder, the muscles that control the bottom of the bladder. So, when we run out of estrogen after menopause, after a while, all those little receptors are like, what the heck? Wait, what's going on here? And the muscles lose their tension, and the skin on the inside of your urethra, you really do not tend to think about the skin on the inside of your urethra until you get a UTI or you have interstitial cystitis, where it's not an infection, but it's just like low grade, really discomfort.
Yeah.
And oftentimes that is because, you're running out of estrogen to keep those cells healthy. Now, what this means is that when you begin to feel pressure on the bladder that you need to pee, um, the sense of that is greater. There's a greater sense of what's called urinary urgency. And
Okay.
the older we get, if we're not supplementing with estrogen, it can get to the point, instead of having like 20 minutes, half an hour to get to the bathroom when we were younger, it's like we've got 2 minutes if we're lucky. I was on the phone the other day with someone who called and said, thank you, thank you, thank you. She had got to the point where she was either nervous about leaving the house
Mm-hmm.
because she didn't know what was going to happen, whether if she needed to pee, she didn't know she's going to
Right.
have 2 minutes or 5 or 6 minutes to find a public restroom, and who can find one of those these days? Um, or she was just deciding not to go out. And she told me this story. She'd been out and she needed to go so badly that she eventually her choices were sit in the car and pee in the car, or go around a building and pee next to a bush. And I tell you, we're not talking about that. What we're in the grocery store, lines and lines of women's urinary protection product. Nobody's talking about the role that estrogen can play to
Right.
rebuild and maintain that tissue, just as it does for vaginal tissue.
Right.
And so this is another big takeaway, everybody. Just know that you do not have to suffer with incontinence and that potential embarrassment of like leakage. There,
Yeah.
there are ways to avoid that. So thank
Mm.
you
I'm so
for
glad
letting
you
me talk
brought
about
that
that
up
one.
because and no, it's this is important and we all are going through it. Let we hear that. And that's where I guess these symptoms that I think are so correlated to then, okay, like that's lower estrogen, right? If we're that
Yes.
when I've noticed that too. I mean, prior to my, my post-menopausal days, we want to get real here, ladies. I mean, my nickname was Juicy Joyce. I had a
Mhm.
lot of that. I mean, I was a wet gal. And now, like since it's gone, it's like the estrogen, dropped. It's like the Sahara Desert there. And since
Mhm.
I've done supplementation, it's like I always know, oh, I'm getting a good amount of estrogen because I will start getting replenished again. It's like, wow, it's like, I feel like my youth again. Um,
Mhm.
and when it starts drying out, my goodness, and when I know I'm getting low, or I need to like maybe up the dose or put a little bit more on, balance things out. I notice, that if it's dry, it even hurts like to wipe, well, after I go pee.
Right.
Like, wow, like
Yeah.
it's just the skin is just very like thin. It's just thin and it
Mhm.
hurts. And I could tell if I was wiping too hard, that's where you could then have a tear or you could have an issue or it could just go into all those areas that you said could cause complications for sure.
Right. Well, when we fall over and we graze our knee, hopefully we're not doing that at this age, but you familiar with the concept of grazing your skin.
Yeah.
Again, we don't tend to think about our internal skin areas as being grazed. But
Mm.
for a vagina that's run out of estrogen, those cells can no longer hold together. And if you try and have sex,
Oh,
that rubbing of the
yeah.
penis on the skin,
It's
it's gonna
horrible.
graze it. And
Yeah.
the minute you've got a graze, then you've got an inflammatory response because the body's like, oh my God, I've got to go and repair this. I've got to just recruit all sorts of little enzymes and response to go and repair it. And that repair process, um, can it be uncomfortable and itchy in itself. And
Right.
so by gradually replenishing the supply of estrogen to vaginal tissue and the vulva tissue as well, it's not just internally, the cells begin to build their connectivity again. They have the resource they need to
Right.
repair. And to it's like they plump back up again and they have moisture in them and they're
Totally.
flexible. And so women can get back to the intimate relationship that they want to have. We have these letters that just make us cry from our customers who they've been in a terrible situation and they're, oftentimes they have understanding husbands, but they have lost this critical piece of intimacy that
Hmm.
they had with their love partner.
Yes.
They're one, and they get this back,
Yeah,
and it's transformative for their
it is.
relationship because they're back in connection in this most intimate way with their key
And
person.
that is all about wholeness and optimal health and well-being too. We need that intimate
Right.
connection for
Yes. I mean, not everybody's interested in sex or involved in an intimate relationship. For those that are,
yeah.
that can be a really important part of their life.
Agreed. I love it. Talk to us a little bit about the difference because we hear this so much. So I want my ladies to know the difference between HRT, hormone replacement therapy, and bioidentical hormones. What is the difference? If you could explain.
Oh my goodness, we can talk about this one for a whole hour. So, hormone therapy was developed in the sort of 50s and 60s,
Okay.
and these are synthetic hormone-like products.
Okay.
And they were developed to manage symptoms of menopause to replace hormones. However, while there are some, positive effects of these hormone-like substances are not the same as the hormones that our bodies make. Um, because of that, they can come with some side effects. Now, for a long time, pharmaceutical companies said, oh no, this is it, this is it. They also began to say, well, get women on them, by a certain period of time, but get them off as soon as possible because they began to realize that there were some side effects and some long-term potential consequences. What is missed in that whole conversation is the concept of using a hormone supplementation that is the same as the hormones that our body makes. And those are bioidentical hormones. And for a long time, pharmaceutical companies said, oh, no, you shouldn't do that. You shouldn't do that. No, it's not regulated. Blah, 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 stop doing that. And it was likely men saying it. So a deep voice is appropriate. But one of the big reasons is they would not get behind that is because you cannot patent it. And if you cannot patent it, then a pharmaceutical company is not going to make any money off it. So it's like this bioidentical hormones, buy this synthetic one and we will make a lot of money. Over time, what has happened very quietly without any fanfare is that your pharmaceutical companies have made their own bioidentical hormones. So they have manufactured hormone supplementation that is bioidentical. And now they package it in patentable delivery forms. So we're back to the messaging of, yes, we have this, and these are well measured and they're well organized. Buy from us and we'll make a lot of money.
Right.
Dismiss all the other solutions for bioidentical hormones that have been around for a long time and work perfectly well. So there's a lot of politics and money, and an industry
Yeah, in
behind.
big food too, same
Right.
thing.
Oh,
Same
it's
thing.
exactly the same.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, my ladies know all about that. Corruption, ladies.
That's with a big
It
C.
it is.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
give me some examples for instance, the hormone, tell me if I'm wrong, because I probably am. Hormone replacement therapy way back in my mom's day, which I remember her doctor even saying, or my mom saying, I'm only on this for a little time and then I'll have to go off of it. And was Premarin. So is that an HRT? What Premarin
It
is?
is.
Explain
Yeah,
to my
that's an
ladies
example of.
that don't know what Premarin is and where it really comes from.
So there are two major hormone-like products in there. The first one is an estrogen-like product, and it's called conjugated equine estrogens. And so those are made from using a base of horses' urine. There are hormones that are made in horses' pregnant mares' urine, which are very close to the structure of hormones. And so scientists take those and they, do their stuff in the lab.
Right.
But they change the structure not so that it's like estradiol or estriol, two of the important natural hormones. But they put a little extra chemical on there, a little molecule on there and patent it. And so they fall into the category of conjugated equine estrogens, so horse estrogens. So those are matched with a progestin, not a progesterone, a progestin. And medroxyprogesterone is an example of one of those. So again, it's the progesterone molecule, but it's had something added to it so that it is patentable. So Premarin is a combination of both conjugated equine estrogens and medroxyprogesterone.
Okay.
And that is what's given to women. And medroxyprogesterone in particular has a very high correlation with an increased rate of stroke, blood clots and stroke. And so again, that's one of the reasons the message is, okay, help, women can take this to help them through that menopausal transition, but get them off it as soon as possible. And that, I mean, there's so many ways that's wrong. It's just wrong in so many ways, but it completely changes the conversation about how hormones can actually be incredibly useful for another 40 years of women's life. If we go through menopause at 50 and we live to be 95, that's a very long time without hormones. And that's why, when we backfill a little bit with some bioidentical estrogen, so bioidentical progesterone, maybe even some DHEA, because DHEA itself can translate into some testosterone and then to estrogen.
Right.
These are all going to help maintain so many body functions that allow us not just to live to 95 in a wheelchair, for example, but vibrant, outside, engaged in our community, with our grandchildren, with our great grandchildren, for heaven's sake, active. So
Yeah.
yeah, that
So
misses that story.
Premarin, the name, it comes from pregnant mare's urine. I mean, they put it right in the name. Like that's
Right,
what my mom took. That's what, if
right.
you know a lady or one of you's out there,
Mm,
that's what you're taking.
yeah, my
It's
mom
great.
did too, and she's had breast cancer twice.
Oh, so
Yeah,
sorry.
because
Yeah,
again, when we think about how if you put something into your body that is not natural to your body, there's
right.
often an opposite reaction to it.
Yeah.
And there is some evidence that suggests that, um, using Premarin or Premarin-like products can cause breast cancer to develop.
Mm. Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, I've even had doctors say, well, for estrogen, because I've just been to so many different, I like just interviewing doctors. I'm just going, paying my copay so I can hear, what does this idiot think? What does that idiot think? What's their shtick?
Right.
But wanting to put me on birth control, it's like
Oh,
for estrogen. Now,
mm-mm.
what about is when you were talking about the pharmaceutical companies are doing bioidentical hormones. Would that be like the patch? Would
Yep,
that be considered a
yep,
bioidentical hormone?
that's a patch.
Okay. Okay. All right. Yeah. So tell us how now. So we know that wow, there's a problem here. We identify these symptoms, but how else could a woman find out for sure what her levels are? Or is there a way to test this? What kind of tests? I know you mentioned
Absolutely, there's
some
testing.
early. Yeah.
For a long time, the gold standard was blood test. Now, the drawback with blood test is it measures all the hormones in the body for a particular analyte like estrogen. Now, a high proportion of those estrogen molecules, they're actually bound to what's called a carrier protein, something that carries it around. And when you're bound to a carrier protein, you can't hit a receptor site on a cell and do your work. You're bound. That's it. So what you really want to know is the unbound level of hormone. Now, when you measure in serum, what you're measuring is that total level. And so you have to make inferences to work out how much of the unbound. Another way to test is in saliva. And it just so happens that the membrane on the saliva gland from the blood to the saliva gland is fine enough that it only allows the unbound hormone in. The bound hormone is too big. And
Okay.
so when you take a sample of saliva and you test that using your normal analytes, you actually get a pretty darn accurate measure of the unbound hormone. And
Wow.
you want that unbound hormone level because you're trying to work out how much do you need to use on top of that.
Right. Now, I've done the saliva testing in the past for progesterone, but can you also test estrogen or
Mhm.
testosterone in saliva
Yep.
also? You
You
can.
can test
Okay.
there's three types of estrogens: estrone, estradiol, that's the powerful one, and estriol.
Okay.
Progesterone, testosterone. You can test DHEA that I've mentioned a few times. That's an adrenal hormone. And then you can test cortisol. And of course, cortisol is terribly important for understanding stress levels.
Mm,
And you can you can do a saliva test for cortisol. You take a morning, a noon, an evening, and a bedtime sample, and you plot those in a curve. And you
okay.
should get it's a curve that goes up in the morning and then fades away at bedtime. Um, and understanding what the pattern of that curve is tells you how much stress somebody is dealing with and
Wow.
what could be done to get it back to the pattern it should
That
be.
sounds exciting. I love testing. Now, I even heard a little birdie tell me you guys are going to be venturing into that and possibly offering testing, which is going to be, I think, so crucial. Because definitely in my journey of, trying to balancing my hormones, I don't want to, I'm also just like science. I want those numbers. I don't want to just go off of, oh, maybe, I feel good or I don't feel good, or I want to know what correlates to me feeling good according to, my numbers. And so I do a lot of testing, myself, just because I loved keeping
Mm-hmm.
track of that. So it's going to be so great if you and Kirsty do get into that arena where you make it available to have that, because there's just, it's so great. And to be able to just do it from your comfort of your own home and be
Right,
able to
right.
just test your saliva and then send it in to the labs
Mm-hmm.
and get those answers.
Yeah, we're looking into that. We want to make sure that this is something that is really helpful for our customers. We're not going to bring anything to market, any of our products, unless
Right,
we're like, oh, this is it. We've given this some serious thought, done a lot of work behind
right.
it. Ideally, we would love it if our patients have a practitioner that they can go to for this, but there's a high number of practitioners who won't do this. Um, we actually have a lot of customers who live in remote rural areas, and so
Hmm.
they don't have easy access to a practitioner. It's one of the reasons they find us. They're looking for solutions. So yes, we want to bring something to our ladies that gives them accurate information, that gives them good information that they can understand, so they know what their options are.
Right. I love that. All right. Well, I'll be waiting for that. I'll be your first customer.
Right.
Definitely. So let's get into solutions. I mean, we're talking about, it seems evident that this is an area that needs, if ladies, you're not feeling well and you've kicked sugar and you're eating right and you've got these symptoms, that alone isn't going to do it. You need to balance out, like myself. You need some support for sure. And that's what you ladies, you and Kirsty do. So what do you have available? Share with us. I want to talk about the actual products because they're amazing. I
Yeah.
love them. I use them.
So
Talking about them and explaining, maybe also just getting into how would you even use it? I think that's always
mm,
scary at first too. Like, how do you use it?
right,
When do you use it? All that kind of stuff.
right, right.
And hold
So
them up. If
our
you've got
flag,
them there, hold them
I
up. Yeah.
do. This is our silky peach cream,
Love it.
and um, so this is oftentimes where our ladies start, because a lot of our outreach is focused on talking about vaginal dryness and getting the fun back in your sex life. Um, And so they start with the estriol. Now, this is an estriol cream. It is the weakest of the estrogens. And there are plenty of studies, good clinical studies, that show a little bit of estriol every day can rebuild and maintain that tender vaginal tissue. And so
Mhm.
typically you just put a little bit, one pump to start with on your finger, and apply that to the outside of the vagina, onto the labia, onto the vulva.
Okay.
Um, do that for a couple of days just to make sure there's not too much and not a reaction. I mean, there might be some stinging because that skin could be tender.
It did
If it
do
looks
that
like
for me at
it's
first, but then it went
just
away.
at first,
Yeah.
yes. And as that repair process continues, then you can up that to 2. So 2 pumps will give you 1 milligram, and that's a pretty standard amount to use. And
Okay.
many of our ladies will use that every day for 2, 3, 4 months whilst they're going through that healing process.
Right.
And then some of them will drop down to every day or every other day after that. And
Okay.
we have subscriptions, and we can vary the time depending on how much their body needs. So that's
How long does
oftentimes
it
where women will start.
how long does it take to really start noticing? Have you noticed the average with women before they'll be like, wow, I'm feeling better?
Well, of course, we did a survey on this because we wanted some data. Um,
Of course.
and we're going to be scientific about this. And we found that 20% really begin to feel a difference within 4 weeks. By
That's
8
fast.
weeks, 40% are feeling a good difference. By 4 months, most 80% are there. And then there's a few, it tends to be our older ladies who have been a long time from menopause. Um, by 6 months, pretty much everybody is there. They've got that repair phase over, and then they're onto like a maintenance phase.
Okay. And is there any risk? I know we've had many women in the group with breast cancer. Is there any contraindication using a product like this? Um, if someone has that
So
or had it, I should
we're
say?
always going to say check with your practitioner, and then
Right.
we add. So there's, I mentioned estradiol
Yeah.
before, one of the
Yeah.
strongest, but it's the strongest estrogen. Estradiol works on one of the estrogen receptors, that are estrogen receptor alpha, which is often involved in breast cancer growth.
Okay.
Estriol, the cream that we have, the estrogen that we have in our cream, that works on the estrogen receptor beta that is
Okay.
not involved in breast cancer growth. So
Okay.
it acts in a different way within the body.
Right.
Now, the other thing about that is those two hormones compete with each other. So estradiol, the big one, against estriol, but estriol will often get there faster, and it will sit and block the effects of estradiol.
Okay.
So even in women who are at risk for breast cancer or who may have had breast cancer, as long as they're being monitored, there are an increasing number of practitioners say that a small amount of estriol is well indicated for
Okay.
vaginal dryness.
Mm, that's good to know.
Oh, I
What
know.
about now your other product that has progesterone, right?
Right. So this one is our Vibrant Third, and we had so much fun coming up with the name of this.
I love it.
We want everyone's last third of life to be vibrant. We want them to have the energy. We want them to be able to get the sleep. We want them to get out and do what they love to do and change the world or whatever it may be.
I love
And
the progesterone. I think it's my favorite hormone of all.
it does so much in the body, and it's not dramatic like the Silky Beach cream can be, but it works gradually and consistently and slowly to elevate function of all the, we've talked about it, but all the ways it can
Yes.
help the body.
Yeah.
And so we often have ladies, they'll start with the Silky Peach cream, and then they decide that they want to add the progesterone, and we just say, use a pump of this or half a pump every day to begin with, or every other day. Kind
Yeah.
of, often intuitively know what is going to be good for us.
Yes.
And so if you started off a pump every day and you were finding yourself being a little bit sleepy, well, you could drop it down. Make sure you use this one at bedtime to begin with, because most people, it will act on that GABA receptor, as we
Yeah.
mentioned. For a small portion of women, they end up having to take it in the morning, because instead of primarily acting on the GABA receptor, it will act on the adrenal gland and increase the production of cortisol. So a small number of women, progesterone will go primarily that direction again. Sometimes
That's
you just
funny.
don't
I
know.
didn't know that. I
Right.
started actually using progesterone cream way back in, I mean, like my mid 30s. I mean, still in
Mhm.
my period, but because I felt like I was estrogen dominant. I
Yes.
did saliva testing and
Mhm.
with Dr. Lee, I'm sure you've heard of him.
Oh,
Um,
yes.
oh yes, I loved his book. I read it way back when. And like I would get, headaches from, I guess estrogen dominance. And I would rub a
Mhm.
little progesterone cream on the back of my neck. I would almost say like, oh, I know this is a chemical headache. I know it's a hormone headache, and it would go away.
Right.
Was the progesterone was doing and helping that?
Absolutely. If you're estrogen dominant, typically a woman who is still cycling, and who may be interested in conception, she can use this 50 days 15 through 28 of her cycle.
Mm,
If her cycles are erratic, if she just uses it 15 through 28 and stops, that drop in progesterone when she stops using it, that will signal, "Oh, end of cycle," and the uterine lining will shed.
mm,
She'll get her period. So it can be used to help younger women get their cycles on a regular process,
right,
and it can help them begin to ovulate successfully again. So I know there's plenty of practitioners out there who, will use progesterone to help with fertility as well.
right. No, because it is the hormone, if I'm not mistaken, that
Hmm.
really like when you're talking about infertility, that maybe they're low in it because that creates the lining for the
Right?
child, right? For birth.
Helps
Yeah.
helps keep that lining in a strong, robust, and safe
Right.
environment. Yeah.
Right. Gets you ready. So,
Yeah.
so I love this stuff. And then, of course, we've already talked about the chaos commerce. So,
Oh,
but
yes.
that is just a wonderful addition to your
A
product.
Zen cream. Yeah.
I'm just going to dump the whole bottle on me. So we've got, I know we're running out of time. I know, ladies, oh, I think I've run out of time, but we're gonna go just a little over, and we're gonna open up the floor here to Q&As if there are any questions. Dawn, did we get any in, by the way? We did? Okay. And let's also, before we do that though, let's give away, hold up just again, those 3 products. I want the ladies to see that you and Kirsty are giving away tonight. So generous of you. One lucky lady is going to win this amazing package here tonight, because we're going to be doing a drawing here for some name that was pre-registered. You had to pre-register. So Dawn, will you do the honor and see who a lucky lady is that you pick out?
We have Lori Del Maro.
What?
So Lori.
Lori, yeah.
So wonderful.
Fantastic. All right, Lori, stay tuned. Dawn will get in touch with you to get your address and everything so we can get it over to Parlor Games and they'll ship that product out to you. And I want to hear how it does for you. That is fantastic. Woo! All right. So
Okay.
now let's open it up. You said you had a couple.
I have several questions that have come through. So I have a whole list. I'm just going to go through that way as opposed to bringing people on until we get through these.
Okay.
Okay.
Oh, wait, before we do that, I want to point out, if you wouldn't mind, I want to just say also the thank you to that kit, but also ladies, take note that Kirsty and Kate, they are giving 10% off to our IKS tribe members. If you do feel that you need this support and you want to try out the products and get started on them. So Dawn's going to put in the chat box, if you would do that right now, Dawn, the link that they can use to go do some shopping, and also the promo code, which is IKS10. Woo! And that is good through next Thursday, the 27th. So you've got a week to get your products and get started on it. You're going to love it. Okay, let's open up the floor to some Q&As and see what these ladies have to say. If you're okay with that, Kate, do you have a few more minutes?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Wonderful. All right.
Okay, you talked about the saliva testing. Do you have a recommended source since you guys are not doing that currently?
You know, I am biased because I used to be the president of Labrix Clinical Services that did salivary hormone testing. They were bought out by Doctor's Data. But if you can find a Labrix kit online, there are some vendors who sell those online. They're definitely a company that it's just really good quality testing. And the test report is very informative. So that gets my 100% vote.
Okay, and Joyce, I'll have to get you to get from her the exact name so we can put that in the email.
Yes.
Because that's not one I'm familiar with. I could just pull it up right away.
Okay.
Okay, so we'll do that. I had intermediate an ablation. I can't talk today. Done several years ago, so I don't have periods. Aside from testing, is there a way I know when I'm in menopause? I'm 48 years old. I haven't experienced hot flashes or had issues during sex. However, I do sometimes find that it's harder to hold when I have to pee.
Mm-hmm. If you're no longer having periods at all, you're in menopause, definitely in menopause. And that is illustrated kind of by the fact that your estrogen levels are on the way down. When you begin to, even if you do something to the uterus but you don't do anything to the ovaries, there's a feedback loop that goes between the two. And when there's no longer a feedback loop between the uterus and the ovaries just like, oh, well, okay, we're done. And they will start producing or really decline the production of estrogen. So it's likely that your estrogen levels have dropped to the point where you are post-menopausal, and that increased urinary urgency is a strong indicator of that.
Would you recommend she get tested just so she could see where her FSH and where her hormone levels are to know that?
I think that things to take a look at would be estrogens,
Right.
and progesterone. You could look at testosterone as well, just to see what those three would be the minimum that you would want to take a look at. And I would highly recommend those being in saliva. Again, because you're looking at that bioavailable level. What is your body making and circulating around? And if it's really low, that would indicate that there's room for increasing those levels.
Good. Thank you.
Please tell me she has a product for OAB. The prescriptions don't help me at all.
I don't know what
OAB
is.
What's
I don't either. I
OAB?
was hoping you knew. Okay, well, if you wrote that question, if you could state, overactive bladder.
Overactive.
Oh.
So yes, that's the Silky Peach Cream. That's absolutely the Silky Peach Cream. If you apply this just on a consistent, I mean, it can take sometimes a little bit longer than the vaginal repair. I mean, it's also different, but yes, just getting some estriol rather, back into those tissues will help rebuild the muscle, help everything just be stronger and way more able to function like we want it to.
And would you apply it the same way as if it was a vaginal issue?
Yep, apply it to the vulva. And if that's a little bit tender, you can apply it on the outer labia until the skin is not quite so tender and sore.
What do you think about Kegel exercises? Do you think?
Oh, yep, there's those. I mean, those are all important. And not that you're going to use Instagram before you go to bed, but you can go look on Instagram and you can type in pelvic floor exercises, and before you know it, your Instagram feed will be full of people showing you how to do pelvic floor exercises. So
I love it.
That's funny.
not that you'll look at them at bedtime.
No.
Hey, there is another thing. Let me just, this is an area that I've been looking into, and it's not really to do with hormones, but it's to do with histamine. Histamine is one of our neurotransmitters, and it's the thing we produce in response to allergies and in stress as well. And so if we have elevated levels of histamine, that can cause us to wake in the night and have that sense of urgency as well. So keeping our histamine levels down is important. Now, you have to be super careful with using an antihistamine, because there is some studies that suggests long-term use of those can, have effects on your brain. But there are a number of supplement companies. Just hang on, I've got 3 here. I can show you. Hang on.
Okay. While she's hanging on, I just happened to glance. I never see any messages, but I saw someone say, where do you add the promo code? And if any of you ladies are trying to add the promo code right now to shopping cart, if I'm not mistaken, Kirsty said she already added it in to the link. So first she gave me the promo code, and then she decided to make it easier for all of you. So the 10% is already automatically coming off. If you don't see where to do it, that's why. Okay, go on. What have you got to show us, Kate?
All right, so there's these 3 products that I've been curious about and investigating. This one, can we see? It is by Douglas Labs, and it's Cysto Renew. And the kind of things it has in there are bromelain, citrulline, quercetin, arginine. Then this is one that I actually use because I get hay fever by New Beginnings.
Okay.
And this one has quercetin, stinging nettle, bromelain, N-acetylcysteine, vitamin C. And then at the conference that I was at the weekend, I picked up some of these samples by this company, New Medica.
Okay.
And that one is called Seasonal Shield.
Ooh.
But these all work as antihistamines. And so if for some reason you have elevated histamine, that is causing that can cause that overreaction in the bladder as well.
Wow.
So this is just a new area that
Dawn,
I've been
I'm
digging
thinking of you,
into.
Dawn.
Yes, I was just thinking that. I wrote it down. Yes.
Not for her bladder, for her allergies right now.
Oh,
Yeah.
yes.
Right.
Overactive
So if you're
histamine.
prone to allergies and histamine goes up, it can have these other knock-on effects in the body. So
Mm,
Good to
not our
know.
products at all, but just some information.
yeah, thank
I
you for
love
sharing
it.
that, Kate.
Yes.
What other questions? Are there other ones, Dawn?
Oh yeah, we have quite a few.
Okay.
Can you use all of these products at the same time?
Yes. We do have guidelines as to how and to when. If you're doing fine with anxiety, with just a little bit, or sleep with just a little bit of progesterone, you may not need the chaos calmer. But if it's not cutting it, you might want to add the chaos calmer just in the interim. And the goal is, please, if you can find your way to get through the stressful environment and find those ways to find a more peaceful way to be in the world.
Yeah.
Whatever that might be, whether it's meditation. I'm a Reiki master, and so doing Reiki on myself is a great way for me to sort of be calm. But whatever it might be to get to the point where you're responsive rather than reactive to situations.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
So true. That's what we
Absolutely.
talk about with the sugar.
Yep. Okay. If you, and this is talking about for younger people, it's for her daughter. If she's taking birth control, not to prevent pregnancy or anything like that, but for PMS purposes that her doctor put her on, would Vibrant Third maybe be a good fit for this?
Yes, absolutely.
And it would help
Um,
control
Those PMS symptoms, a lot of those are because of estrogen dominance. We tend to think of that being related to older women, but no, young women get that too. And so if she was going to use progesterone days 15 through 28 of her cycle, that would mimic what would be the normal surge in progesterone to balance the estrogen of the first half.
Yeah.
Okay, good to know. And are all of these things you said there's instructions? Is it like a separate paper instruction or is it on the bottles? And I ask because some things come in on the bottles and you're like, I can't read this stuff. So is it presented in another way other than the bottles?
No, we have a separate booklet that comes with our products. We have such a hard time with the labels because there's so much information we have to get on there. And even with
Yeah.
Exactly. Yes.
and we
So
have
I'd
them
love
on our
somebody else to.
website, and we have
Your
so much
Facebook
information
group, you have a
available. We have a
huge Facebook
blog.
group. Yeah.
There's so much support. Yes, we have this Facebook group that only our customers can join, and it's just we have over 11,000 women in there now. Incredible community, supportive community. So you can get any question answered.
That's
Yeah.
awesome. Okay. If you're having irregular periods, should you try to regulate your cycles? Can you explain what is normal for cycles as you wind down towards menopause?
Oh, that's such a fantastic question, because some women's cycles will get shorter and shorter and shorter. That's what happened to me as I was, going up my 40s. I got to about 45, 46, and my cycles were 22, 23 days long. And then I began to understand more about the role that progesterone could make. And I was probably 47 when I started using progesterone cream. And so for a while I would just use it that second half of the cycle, and it really helped regulate. There are women whose cycles got longer and longer and longer and heavier and heavier and heavier. It's like, it's kind of up to you. Do you want that, or do you want to not have that? In which case you can use progesterone to regulate that. The reason why cycles get longer and longer is because you have this surge in estrogen that is unopposed or not balanced by progesterone. So that uterine lining just continues to get thicker and thicker and thicker and bigger and bigger and bigger. And then when eventually the other is a period, it's like the entire universe is coming out of your uterus, and it's just uncomfortable. So yes, it all depends on what you want. There's definitely advantages to having progesterone in your body for more than just to oppose estrogen. So
Yeah.
kind of an individual choice. But so then, just from my own personal experience, and then it dawned on me, like, well, if I just began to use this day 8 through 28. That would help a little bit with those variations. I was very busy running a company and I had teenagers at the time. So the number of things that could trigger me, there was some big things. And that just really helped. And then I thought, well, I'm just going to start using this pretty much. It had gone for like a year and a half without a period, and I just started using it every day.
Yeah.
I just went to every day after that. And I'm 60 now, and I don't use it every day. I don't need it every day. Not like I did in my 40s and my early 50s, where if I missed a day, oh, it was awful. I was going to hell in a handbasket. You just So now I just titrate it. I know I need some, but not a huge amount. So
Great
Good.
question.
Yeah.
Appreciate the answer.
My endocrinologist won't check my cortisone level because I take prednisone. Would this also affect the results of the other hormone levels in a saliva test?
Yes. If you're taking prednisone, particularly if you're taking it long term, it will impact your DHEA production. And DHEA is the major hormone from which many of the other hormones flow. So your DHEA will be low, which means your testosterone, which will be low, because testosterone is made from DHEA. And then estrogen, which is made from testosterone, that will be low also. So taking prednisone long term will just completely blow out that side of hormone production. It can also influence progesterone levels as well through different sort of steroid hormone pathway. So yes, if you're able to get off that.
Yeah.
Okay, I think I know the answer to this one. I'm pretty sure it's Silky Peach, but what product is for urinary incontinence?
You are right. It is Silky Peach. She was listening. Yes.
Okay, so next question. I believe you've already covered this one also, but just to re-clarify, what if you have factor 2 gene mutation? I know for sure not HRT or birth control, but what about these natural products?
Oh my goodness. Great. Everyone, when it comes to anything like that, I am always going to say just have that conversation with your practitioner, because your practitioner knows your full medical history and has that just in the context of, whether the progesterone would be a good match, and if so, how much. So yeah, just run that one by your practitioner.
Doctor. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. So I figured. Would the creams help with bladder leakage when doing exercises and jumping?
Yes. Over time, you are rebuilding the strength of the muscles that sit at the base of the bladder that control the opening, and also the little muscles that line all the way along the urethra, and of course right at the end as well. So just gradually refilling that reservoir of estriol.
Sharon, you're having trouble, I know, with the discount. So in the email will be the direct link, and I will post it again here in just a few minutes. But we will make sure you get the right link.
Is the link not working? Because again, the discount, I believe, is already in the link. Okay.
I'm putting the link that was sent over to us, but for some reason it's only pulling up the parlorgames.com side of it.
Oh.
And I'm not exactly sure why. So,
All right. Well, yes, we will send out an
Yeah.
email afterwards if you have any problem, and make sure that we've got everything correct. We apologize.
Yeah.
All right.
So, see if that one works. We'll see. I tried it a different way.
Okay.
Do you ship to Canada?
Oh, I'm so sorry. We're not able to do that. We don't have an export license. We are big enough that we would have to have an export license, and we don't have that. Plus, we have found that the shipping costs are pretty prohibitive when you're just doing one at a time.
Yeah.
So if you have a friend who can send it to you,
That's the way to go. Yeah. Love it. We do have I have a lot of Canada ladies. Sorry, ladies. Okay.
Yes.
Any others, Dawn?
I find that I get a slight depression and can't understand why I'm healthy every other way, and I'm 63.
I'd say
Yeah.
hormones.
Right. You know, it oftentimes that's a lack of both estrogen and progesterone. But you know, there's another piece. I mean, we've talked primarily about estrogen and progesterone, but I'm going to go back to DHEA, dihydroepiandrosterone. It's made in the adrenal gland. It's one of our adrenal hormones. It's also what's called an androgen, because men make more of it than women. But that is known as our wellness hormone. And DHEA has many effects in the body, particularly in the brain, a lot of neuroprotective effects in the brain. But it increases our sense of wellness and aliveness. And DHEA, you know, our maximum levels are when we're like 28, 29, 30. And it's a pretty steady decline thereafter. By the time we are sort of 75, we're down to somewhere around 10, 15% of the level of DHEA that we had when we were younger. And it's part of the reason our hormone levels drop. We have less DHEA to be the raw material for making our hormones. But it does have enervating, you know, mood elevating effects all on its own. And we have actually been doing a product test, a pretty scientific product test with volunteers from our customer base, and we're coming to the end of it. And so we had a did a symptom survey at the beginning. We did one midway through, and we're about to run that second final symptom survey. But it was pretty impressive what we came up with, or the results, the changes in symptoms just after a month.
Wow.
Quite a few people reported lowered senses of depression, and you know, just improved mood, improved like, remember me, I got this. I got this.
That sounds
Um,
fantastic.
so that's another thing to think about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm tapering off the prednisone after 8 years of use. Should I wait until I stop the prednisone to start the hormones? Is it easier for everyone to tell me to get off the prednisone, but it really helps me function because of my chronic inflammatory diseases?
Right. And I'm right there with you. I have ankylosing spondylitis and have had that since my second daughter was born when I was 34. So I completely understand what it's like to live with chronic inflammation. Sugar. Oh my goodness. I'm glad you're on that program, because that's a big piece of it. And bless your heart for taking these actions for yourself. Ideally, probably tapering off is good. I know that's hard. Progesterone, just so you know, progesterone, actually both progesterone and estrogen do have anti-inflammatory properties. They don't have the whammy that prednisone has, but they do act to turn the volume down on inflammation. So if you're able to, you know, keep on the no sugar and some of the other lifestyle changes and turn that down on prednisone, and then, you know, fairly soon begin to turn it up on progesterone and some estrogen, I think that could help.
And I
Again,
would say, I would add, like, to be doing that, if her doctor right now is opposed to any of that, I would say
right,
find
always
a
check.
doctor that is open to this plan, you know, wanting to get off of that and is on the same path and idea mindset, whether it's a naturopath, you know, a functional medicine doctor,
Yeah.
somebody that can help guide her in that transition
Mhm.
of shifting, and that you're not
And-
doing
and-
something like that on your own. Would you agree?
Right.
Yeah.
And that's it. I mean, this whole world of functional medicine. Again, I was at a conference this weekend. It was chiropractors, and they're all internal medicine practitioners. They have so much knowledge, so
Yeah.
much biochemistry understanding. They really get to the root cause of what's going on. And they use a lot of things like supplements like this
Yeah.
because they have anti-inflammatory properties. And so that route you know, it is out of pocket and it can be spendy. And yet, if you can find the resources for that to get you on a path that takes you away from that inflammatory environment, those extra things, oh gosh, it's so worth it. It's so worth it. How much is your health worth? So,
So true. Yeah.
mhm.
Dawn, do we have any other questions?
We do. What
gotta-
products, I know, what products help with DHEA loss?
Straightforward DHE supplementation. So you have a couple of choices there. You can do oral supplementation, or you can do creams, topical creams. The amount in a cream will be a lot less than the one that you take in in a pill, because when you take a pill, it first has to be processed through the liver, and the liver will just clear off at least 80% of that. When it comes to DHEA, there's another little quirk in there. After the liver is finished doing its like clearing out of 80%, anything remaining is converted to another molecule. It's a sister product or sister molecule. It's called DHEAS, and that molecule is a little bit bigger. And that slightly bigger DHEAS molecule cannot cross the blood-brain barrier, and brain is where you want a lot of your DHEA having an effect. And so, you know, consider using a DHEA cream, because that's going to hold that DHEA as DHEA for longer. Some of it will get converted to this other molecule, but you keep more of it as that DHEA, which will cross the blood-brain barrier. So,
And I do believe I heard a little birdie say that's something maybe possibly in the future too. You guys are planning and in the
yes,
mixed in the labs working on. So that's
right,
exciting for sure
yeah,
to get that product.
won't
Yeah.
belong.
Ah, yay! I'm waiting.
Okay, we're almost done. Okay, I keep asking my doctors to test my hormones, but they say that since I'm mid 50s and had my hysterectomy, oophorectomy in early 30s, nothing will help at this point with vaginal dryness, urinary challenges, etc., and won't test. I don't buy it, but also don't know what steps to take. So frustrating.
Well, for first you smack them, because what do they know?
Get a new doctor.
No. Oh my God, I do. I just want to smack them when I hear doctors say that. Just because they don't know of something doesn't mean it doesn't exist. They just don't know. So you've got a couple of choices. You know, we have a lot of literature. You can reach out to us and we can send you, you know, studies on the role of estriol for vaginal dryness, and you can take it to them and smack them with it. Or you can, you know, work with a different doctor, find a naturopath who knows about this, you know, or you could just start on Silky Peach Cream. You know, so many of our customers are in the exact same position as that. They have got nothing from their practitioner, their general practitioner. It's not their area of knowledge. They were never taught this. And honestly, in their defense, women's health post-menopause, it's a specialty. And it's a specialty that doesn't exist yet.
Mhm.
So finding doctors who truly understand women's health post-menopause, it is a bit of a challenge. But if you were to try the Silky Peach Cream, you would be like thousands of women who are in the same situation as you. So.
Yeah. Here.
Okay. Now, until you come up with your DHEA, is there a brand that you would recommend to start with for now?
Oh, I did do some looking. What I found was, I can't think of any names specifically, but what I found was the dosages seemed high.
Hmm.
And I mean, you could probably search on Amazon, but just be careful what you buy. There are some women's creams out there that have like 20 milligrams of DHEA. That is an absurd amount of DHEA. Women typically would start with 5 milligrams. So look for something that
There.
has a small amount. I mean, 20 milligrams is what you would start men on.
Wow.
So, and the reason, I mean, there's a bunch of reasons, but you can really mess up your hormone balance if you use too much. And you know what I said before about like DHEA is the foundation hormone after which testosterone comes, and then it comes down to estradiol. So if you take a lot of DHEA, you're going to make a lot of testosterone. Now, some testosterone gets converted to DHT, And we're all starting to grow hairy chins anyway, and our little mustaches are coming in. So if you put a whole bunch of DHEA to DHT to testosterone to DHT, you're going to have a whole bunch of this going on. So be super careful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Find us a low dose cream.
Good number.
Okay.
5
Awesome.
milligrams.
Well, and there's just one last comment that I'll share, and I think we're done. But Chris said, use these products. I had my hysterectomy 32, and the Silky Peach changed her life.
Woo,
So,
Chris.
finish it with
Yay.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you for that.
Love
you.
it. Oh my goodness. Well, we did, we did an hour and 40 minutes. Leave it to Joyce.
We
knew
don't
that
have to
was gonna
stop, do we?
happen,
Can we go
ladies.
on? Can we keep going?
I know. We'll call it a wrap because I know we could keep talking all night long on this. I mean, we're gonna have you back, seriously.
Thank you,
Questions, all
Joyce.
the questions that you ladies asked, Kate, thank you so much. And it really showed me like, wow, these ladies are really listening and they need these questions, and they don't get these questions answered by their doctors, which is so
Right.
unfortunate. So
That's a big part of our mission, is to try and share information. Our blog, we really want to raise people's awareness, women's awareness of what can be done to help. So
Yeah,
thank
I
you
love
for
the
having
blog.
me to talk to your
Thank you.
ladies.
Thank you. We are all thanking you right now, Kate, for joining us this evening, taking time out of your busy schedule to be with us. We just so appreciate it. And I think you probably are going to have a lot of new Silky Peach parlor games, ladies, joining your tribe as well. So I'm so excited to share these products with my ladies. So thank you, and for all your knowledge. All right, ladies. Thank you, Kate. Have a wonderful evening, and I'll see you all in the Facebook groups. Good night, ladies.
Thank
Have
you.
a great weekend. Thank you, Kate.
Bye-bye.
Bye.